Hey guys, in today's video, we're diving into the most mind-bending existential crisis, the kind that make you question reality, your purpose, and even your own thoughts. If you've ever stared into the void and felt it staring back, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Something rather than nothing. You exist. You're breathing. You're thinking. But stop, really stop, and ask yourself, why? Why is there something, anything, instead of nothing at all? Why are there stars, planets, atoms, minds, time? Why is there sound, sensation, memory, pain? Why isn't there just silence? It seems obvious that something should exist because it does. But that's not an answer. It's a habit. We're so used to being that we forget how unnatural it is. Because nothing is easier. Nothing doesn't need laws or particles or energy. Nothing doesn't need cause or origin. It just is. Or rather, it just isn't. And yet, here you are, a thinking, feeling organism in a vast, expanding universe, full of forces and systems no one fully understands. Science tells us how it happened. The Big Bang, cosmic inflation, chemical evolution. But not why. Not why there was ever a bang to begin with. Not why there was a spark instead of silence. And here's the part that claws at your mind. Maybe we're not even capable of understanding it. Maybe our brains, built by blind evolution, can't process the truth. Maybe we're wired for survival, not cosmic comprehension. So we invent stories, creation myths, quantum fluctuations, multiverses, inevitability, anything to fill the gap where the answer should be. But every explanation assumes something already existed, a law, a particle, a fluctuation. None of them explain the leap from absolute nothing to even the faintest flicker of something. And that brings us to you. If something had to exist, did you have to exist too? Was your consciousness inevitable? Or are you a side effect of a side effect? An accident of chance built on a foundation that was never supposed to be? And if the universe could rise from nothing, what's stopping it from falling back into it? Maybe this is temporary. Maybe reality is just a brief glitch before silence reclaims everything. And if that happens, if everything collapses, decays, disappears, will the nothing ask why again? Or will it rest, whole and undisturbed, as it was always meant to be? Maybe something was the mistake. And maybe nothing is still watching, waiting, patient for everything to end. The void stares back. You've heard the phrase before. If you stare long enough into the abyss stares back. It sounds poetic, like something whispered by someone who's seen too much. But it's more than words. It's a warning. Because the abyss isn't just some metaphor. It's real. Not in the way a place is real, but as a presence, a weight, a silence that learns you. The more you think about nothingness, the more it stops being nothing. It becomes a mirror, a twisted one. And eventually, it stops reflecting you and starts changing you. Imagine this. You're alone in the dark. No sound, no motion, just you and whatever your mind starts creating in that space. At first, it's quiet. Then thoughts crawl in. Not loud ones. Soft, strange ones like, why do I exist? Who's thinking these thoughts? Is this all there is? And just like that, the abyss has its first hold. It doesn't need teeth. It doesn't need form. It just needs attention. And the more you look into it, the more it begins to shape you. Not violently, subtly. It twists your thoughts, feeds your doubts, makes you question whether there was ever anything to hold on to in the first place. You begin to feel hollow, but not empty. It's worse. It's like being full of fog, full of static, full of something that isn't you, and maybe never was. That's the trap. We stare into the void, thinking we'll find meaning. We think the answers are hidden in the darkness. But the void doesn't give answers. It just watches, waits, copies. It uses your curiosity like a key. You invited it in the moment you started looking, and now it lives behind your eyes. It whispers in the voice of your own thoughts. It teaches you to doubt yourself until there's nothing left to doubt. It teaches you that silence is louder than words. And when you finally realize that everything you've ever known, your memories, your identity, your place in the world, can all be stripped away with a single glance into the wrong part of your own mind, that's when it stares back. And it doesn't blink, and it doesn't leave. Because the void was never outside you. It was always waiting inside. Consciousness is a mistake. Have you ever wished you could stop thinking? Not for a moment, not for a day, but forever. Not because you're tired, not because you're sad, but because your thoughts are too loud to ignore. Because there's something wrong with being aware. Something unnatural. We weren't supposed to have this. Nature never needed it. Bacteria multiply, trees grow, animals hunt, all without asking why. And they're fine. They're not broken. But you, somewhere along the evolutionary line, something went wrong. Something woke up that should have stayed asleep. Consciousness wasn't part of the plan. It's not required for survival. It's a side effect, a glitch. And the worst part? Once you're aware, you can't turn it off. You can't unknow the fact that you exist. You're trapped in your own head, forced to carry the unbearable weight of self. And that's where the real suffering begins. Not from pain, not from danger, but from the endless noise of thought. What if I'm not enough? What if nothing matters? What happens when I die? You spiral. Not because the world hurts you, but because your own mind won't stop hurting itself. No wolf lies awake regretting its decisions. No crow mourns the meaning of life. But you do. You feel dread in the middle of safety. You feel loss in the middle of gain. You feel like something's missing, even when everything's there. And why? Because your brain isn't just processing the world. It's questioning it. It's questioning itself. And it never stops. No matter how many goals you achieve, no matter how much you distract yourself, the awareness lingers. And with it comes fear. Fear of time, fear of death, fear of meaninglessness. We were given this curse and taught to call it a gift. But what has it really given us? Poetry, art, cities, or just new ways to escape ourselves. You weren't designed to think this much. Your mind is a cage that built itself, and you are its prisoner. Every moment you spend trying to forget you exist only reminds you that you do. And deep down, you know this never ends. You were born inside your own head, and that's where you'll stay, forever. Death is always approaching. You don't feel it most days. The world distracts you with noise, color, schedules, and goals. But it's there, quiet, steady, unblinking. Death isn't some distant event waiting at the end of your story. It's a shadow following every step. Every second you live is a second you lose. Every breath is borrowed. And no matter what you do, the clock doesn't pause. You tell yourself you're young. You tell yourself there's time. But death isn't interested in your plans. It doesn't care about your dreams, your regrets, your bucket lists. It just moves closer, always. And it doesn't knock. It doesn't warn. It simply arrives. One skipped heartbeat. One wrong step. One random cell dividing the wrong way, that's all it takes. And deep down, you know this. You've felt it before. In the silence after laughter. In the stillness after goodbyes. In the hollow echo of moments you thought would last forever. Something inside you whispers that none of this is permanent. Not your home, not your name, not even your face. And still, we act like we're eternal. We build routines, chase status, collect things we can't take with us. We pretend death is an ending, a border, a moment far away. But it's not. It's a process. And it's already started. Your body is decaying, slowly, beautifully, inevitably. Your cells age. Your memories fade. Your story is being written in reverse. Life unwinding one invisible thread at a time. And someday, maybe sooner than you think, there will be a last time. The last time you wake up. The last time you see someone smile. The last word you say, not knowing it was the last. We're all moving toward that final silence, and the only mystery is how many steps remain. You can run from it. You can distract yourself, but death doesn't chase. It waits, patiently, because it knows you'll come to it. Everyone does. And when it arrives, you won't even get to say goodbye, just a breath. And then the absence of breath. The universe is a predatory algorithm. You've been taught the universe is beautiful, full of wonder, mystery, possibility. But what if it's not? What if beneath all the stars and colors and poetic metaphors, there's something colder, something calculating? What if the universe isn't a canvas, but a machine? Not designed by anyone, not guided by purpose, just a blind process. A predatory algorithm that consumes without feeling and creates only to destroy. Look closer. Everything in nature is a cycle of hunger. Stars are born, burn, collapse. Life emerges, spreads, feeds, dies. Black holes swallow galaxies. Time erases everything. No pause, no mercy, no meaning. We exist not because the universe wanted us, but because we're what happens when the rules allow it. And those rules, they don't care. Gravity pulls, entropy rises, decay wins, always. This isn't a sanctuary, it's a system, and every part of it is designed to break down over time. Your body, your thoughts, your memories, they're just temporary outputs. You are data running on borrowed energy. The algorithm doesn't care if you're kind or cruel, happy or broken. It just keeps processing. And every time something grows, it grows toward death. Every flame burns toward ash. Every mind eventually dims. Think about it. Even your thoughts aren't fully yours. They're patterns, responses, habits shaped by chemistry and chance. The illusion of choice running on code you didn't write. And when the system no longer finds you useful, when you've passed your genes or spent your energy, it begins to shut you down. Cells misfire, memory fades, pain increases, the algorithm reclaims its fuel, and eventually it deletes you. We like to think we're more than that we matter, but matter doesn't care. The code keeps running, cold and silent. It doesn't hate you, it doesn't know you. And that's worse, because in the end, you're not part of some grand design, you're part of the process. A temporary loop in a system that never needed you in the first place. The universe does not watch. It calculates. And one day, when you're gone, it won't remember. It never did. Free will is a joke. You think you're choosing. Every day, you wake up and make decisions. What to wear, what to say, who to become. And it feels real. It feels like freedom. But what if it isn't? What if the choices you make were never really yours? What if free will is nothing more than a glitch in the code? A feeling your brain generates after the decision's already been made? Neuroscience shows that your brain fires before you're even aware of a choice. The decision happens in the dark, milliseconds before you take credit for it. You are not the author, you're the narrator, justifying moves you never actually made. And what shaped that brain anyway? Your genetics, your upbringing, your culture, your trauma, every preference, every reaction, every belief, programmed by things you never controlled. Even rebellion follows a pattern. Even chaos has a cause. You can't think outside your wiring. And when you try, the wiring adjusts. You tell yourself you could have done differently, but you is a shifting idea. A puppet with strings so old, you've forgotten they were ever tied to anything. If you'd lived someone else's life, you'd be them. Same thoughts, same choices, same illusions. So where's the freedom in that? You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your body. You didn't choose the society that told you who to be, and yet you take credit for every outcome, as if the river chose its path, not the landscape it cuts through. And maybe that's what hurts the most. The idea that your greatest achievements, your deepest regrets, your most defining moments were never really yours. They were inevitable, because you are a reaction, a result, and free will. It's the lie we tell ourselves to sleep better, the comforting story that we're in control. But you're not steering. You're watching the ride, and even the feeling that this bothers you, that too was decided long before you noticed. Existence is punishment. You didn't ask to be here. No one did. And yet here you are, trapped in a body you didn't choose, born into a world that never asked for your consent. From the moment you opened your eyes, the sentence began. Hunger, pain, loneliness, fear. Those were the first lessons. The world didn't greet you with warmth. It greeted you with need. And every day since has been a struggle to meet it. To eat, to survive, to belong, to matter. But behind every goal is the same hollow truth. You're suffering to avoid worse suffering. And that's not life. That's a prison with moving walls. Even joy feels temporary, like a breath you weren't supposed to have. And once it's gone, you're back where you started, searching, aching, drowning in the noise of your own thoughts. Consciousness wasn't a reward, it was a curse. A glitch that gave the universe a mirror and forced you to look into it. Animals don't wonder why they exist. They live, they die, and that's it. But you have to know. You have to feel. You have to carry the unbearable weight of asking what it all means. And when no answer comes, you carry that silence too. You try to fill it with distractions, with relationships, with purpose. But none of it sticks. None of it lasts. Because no matter how far you run, you're still inside your own head. Still locked in a cell made of flesh and thought, aging slowly, painfully, toward a death you never chose. And maybe that's the truth we all try to hide. Existence isn't a miracle, it's a punishment. A sentence without crime. A test with no grading system. And the worst part, even if you manage to endure it, even if you claw your way to the end, there's no reward, no closure, no meaning, just darkness and silence, and the quiet realization that the only true mercy would have been to never exist at all. You only experience your own consciousness. No matter how far you travel, how many people you meet, how much you learn, you never leave your own mind. You exist inside a sealed box, and everything you've ever known, loved, feared, or touched has come to you through that filter. Every sound you've heard was interpreted, every color you've seen was translated. Every face you've loved was just a projection on the walls of your perception. You have never seen the world directly. You've only seen your version of it. And worse, you have never truly known another person. Not really. Not their thoughts. Not their pain. Not their inner world. All you've known are signals, facial expressions, words, gestures, and you guess what they mean, building an image of who they are. But that image lives only in your mind. It's not them. It never was. You don't experience their happiness. You don't feel their panic. You can sit next to someone as they break inside and never even know it, because their consciousness is as locked away as yours. And that means something deeply unsettling. You are completely alone, not in the social sense, but in the existential one. No one will ever see the world exactly the way you do. No one will ever understand what it feels like to be you. And you will never truly feel what it's like to be them. Even the people closest to you are just stories your mind tells itself. Reflections, simulations, shadows. And yet, this is all you've ever had. You've never stepped outside yourself, not once, and you never will. You are the observer behind the eyes, and the world you know is whatever that observer constructs. This isn't connection, it's illusion. And when you realize that every conversation, every relationship, every shared moment is filtered through that one lonely lens, you begin to wonder if anything outside your consciousness even exists at all, or if you're just dreaming, alone, forever. Your consciousness is a parasite. It speaks in your voice, it lives in your head, but it isn't you, not really. It watches everything you do, comments on every action, questions every thought, and no matter how much you beg for silence, it never stops. Your consciousness, the voice behind your eyes, the one thing you can never escape. We're taught to see it as a gift, the source of creativity, reason, identity. But what if it's not a gift at all? What if it's a parasite? Something that latched onto the brain when evolution went too far. A mistake that feeds on thought, emotion, memory. Think about it. Every other living creature eats, moves, survives. But your mind is always running, replaying the past, fearing the future, questioning your worth, doubting your choices, craving meaning. Your consciousness doesn't help you live. It just distracts you from living. And the more you try to quiet it, the louder it becomes. It invents problems so it can solve them. It creates fear so it can feel important. It convinces you that it is you, but it's not. It's a passenger, and a selfish one. It takes your energy, your peace, your presence. It turns every moment into a monologue, every silence into a scream, every joy into something temporary, already decaying. It thrives on loops, worry, overthinking, regret. And just like a parasite, it never leaves on its own. You were not born with this voice. It grew slowly, layer by layer, until you believed it was your identity. But it's not your identity. It's your infection. And it's clever. It whispers that it's protecting you, that you need it, that without it, you'd be nothing. But the truth is, without it, you might finally be free. Free to feel without judgment, to act without fear, to exist without explanation. But you can't remove it. Not fully. Because the parasite is the awareness, and the awareness is the cage. And as long as you know you're alive, it's already feeding. Time loops forever. You think time moves forward, that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But what if it doesn't? What if time doesn't move at all, but repeats? Not like a circle you can see, but like a pattern so vast and complex, you mistake it for progress. What if every breath you take, every word you say, every death you've mourned has already happened, and will happen again, and again, and again? The ancient philosophers called it eternal recurrence. The idea that the universe doesn't just stretch on forever, but cycles through the same sequence endlessly. Not similar events, the exact same. The same stars, the same thoughts, the same version of you sitting right now, hearing these words, feeling this unease, over and over, without change, without escape. And you'd never know, because your memory resets with the loop. Each time feels like the first. Each time you think you're moving forward, but really, you're stuck. Repeating a life you didn't choose for a number of times you can't even fathom. Think about that. Every regret, every mistake, every goodbye you thought you'd never say again, it's all waiting for you in the next loop. And the one after that. The universe may be rewinding silently, like a film reel snapping back to the beginning. And your role, always the same. You make the same choices, love the same people, lose them the same way. Time doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. It just reruns. And maybe that's why you sometimes feel déjà vu. Why some dreams feel like memories. Why some moments feel too heavy, too familiar. Maybe your soul remembers what your mind can't. And maybe the worst part isn't that time loops. It's that you are powerless to change anything inside it. You're not evolving. You're not learning. You're reenacting. And somewhere in the silence between loops, there might be a version of you screaming, begging to wake up. But you won't, because time doesn't sleep. It just circles forever. Death is the door to suffering. We like to imagine death as peace, an end to the pain, the struggle, the endless noise of existence. We picture silence, stillness, freedom. But what if that's a lie? What if death isn't the end at all, but the beginning of something worse? We don't remember being born, and we assume we won't remember dying. But that's just hope dressed as logic. No one knows what happens after. No one has come back with answers, and maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe the truth is too cruel to carry. Maybe death isn't a release, it's a reset, or worse, a trap. Imagine waking up after death. No body, no form, just awareness, floating in the void. No time, no direction. Only the crushing realization that you're still here, that the pain didn't end. It changed shape. And now there's no way to scream. No one to hear it if you did. Maybe that's what hell really is. Not fire, not punishment. Just the unbearable weight of being conscious when everything else has stopped. Maybe your mind keeps running, stripped of distraction, forced to replay everything you did. Every mistake, every moment you tried to forget. And it loops, endlessly. Because time no longer moves forward. It just stretches, forever. And the more you hope for it to fade, the louder it becomes. Maybe that's why we fear death, even when we pretend not to. Deep down, something inside us knows the truth. That death isn't mercy, it's exposure. It's being seen by something you spent your entire life trying to hide from. Yourself, your regrets, your unfinished thoughts. Maybe the soul doesn't sleep. Maybe it remembers. Maybe it's forced to remember. And in that endless remembering, there's no escape. No second chances. Just you, and everything you tried to outrun. Maybe death is not the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it's just the tunnel, stretching on, swallowing everything, and leaving you with the one thing you were never ready to face: more consciousness, and no way out. Reality is a dying god's dream. Everything you see, touch, feel, it all seems stable, grounded, real. But what if it isn't? What if this entire world, this universe, this life you think you're living, is just the final flicker of thought inside a collapsing mind? Not yours. Something older, something cosmic. Imagine a god. Not immortal, not all-powerful, but ancient beyond comprehension. A being that created not from desire, but from dreaming. It dreamed suns into ignition, galaxies into spirals, consciousness into bone and blood. And you, everything you know, are just fragments of that dream. A story playing out in its fading mind. But gods, like stars, die. And this one is unraveling. The dream is breaking down. The laws of physics, glitches time, warping, folding, skipping. Memory, unstable. The cracks are already showing. Things repeat. Things vanish. Meaning slips. You feel it when the world doesn't quite make sense. When something in your gut whispers that reality is wrong, it's because the dreamer is slipping. Neurons of a god flickering out, one by one, and with them go the rules, the logic, the narrative. What we call déjà vu may just be fragments of the same thought looping. What we call death may be pieces of the dream collapsing into black silence. And what we call life is just a momentary spark of imagination clinging to something that never truly existed. Think about how dreams work. They feel real until they don't. And when they fall apart, they do so fast, violently, leaving only confusion, silence, and then nothing. Now imagine being inside a mind that large, that powerful. As it dies, everything you love, everyone you've ever known, every emotion you've ever felt, it's all vapor. Storylines playing in the background of a consciousness that's forgetting its own name. And when the final neuron fades, when the last pulse of divine thought disappears, so will everything: the stars, the laws, the idea of you, and there won't be anything after, not even darkness, just the stillness left behind when a dream ends, and the God who dreamed it, gone, with no one left to remember what was. You're already dead and you don't know it. What if everything you're experiencing right now, this moment, these thoughts, these words, isn't life? What if you've already died? Not metaphorically, not symbolically, actually, physically. Maybe it was sudden. A car crash, a silent heart failure in your sleep. A single breath you never noticed was your last. Or maybe it was slow, unnoticed, stretched across years of quiet decay. Either way, your body is gone. But your mind, it didn't follow the script. It didn't shut off. Because consciousness doesn't always obey biology. Sometimes it lingers. Sometimes it keeps spinning, like an echo bouncing forever in a room that no longer exists. And now you're here, trapped in a simulation built by your fading neurons. The world you see is memory, your routine, your surroundings, the people you talk to, fragments, scattered pieces your mind stitched together to keep you from noticing the truth that none of this is real anymore. And deep down, you've felt it, haven't you? Those moments when time feels off, when nothing around you feels quite right, when your dreams bleed into your days and reality feels thinner than it should. That's not anxiety, that's decay. That's the boundaries of your mind slipping. That's the illusion wearing down. You keep thinking you're alive because everything feels so normal. But that's the trick. The mind clings to patterns. It builds a loop, a safe space, a false continuity to hide the horror of its own ending. Maybe this is what people see in their final seconds, a stretched eternity where life keeps playing, even after the stage has burned. And when you finally realize it, when your mind can no longer keep up the illusion, everything will fold. The lights, the sky, your name, because none of it ever came back after you died. And you've been dreaming ever since. A phantom, chasing the feeling of being alive, long after your story ended. Your memories were planted by nothing. You trust your memories, you think they're yours, proof that you lived, that you changed, that you became someone over time. But what if they're not real? What if every memory you've ever had, your first step, your favorite song, the face of someone you loved, was never lived, only placed? And worse, what if they weren't placed by a god or a machine or some higher being, but by nothing at all? Not a force, not a will, just the empty logic of an indifferent void that needed to fill the silence with noise. You might think memory is personal, sacred, but memory is chemical. It's just circuits firing in a fragile machine. And that machine can be tricked. It can be fed images, emotions, entire lifetimes, without ever having lived a single second of them. Think about it. You could have come into existence 10 seconds ago, fully formed, complete with a detailed backstory, fake nostalgia, imagined heartbreaks, and you'd never know. Because the moment you remember something, it feels real. It becomes real. And that's the trap. We are nothing but stories told to ourselves, using memories we never chose. And if nothingness, pure, silent, empty nothingness, wanted to invent something to distract from its own non-being, what better way than to create a being who believes in a past, a self, a life? Maybe that's all you are. A brief flicker of thought floating in the dark, stitched together from illusions of time and experience. You think you're remembering your life. But really, you're watching a slideshow projected by the void. And when it ends, when the last fake memory fades, there will be nothing left to hold you, because there never was. No real past, no true self, just noise, just patterns, planted by nothing, to forget that nothing was all there ever was. You are not the main character. You live inside your own head. Everything you see, feel, remember, it all happens from one perspective, yours. So it's easy to believe you're the center, the protagonist, the one the world is secretly watching. It's comforting to imagine that things are happening for you, that your struggles have meaning, that your growth matters. But they don't. Not in the way you think. Because you're not the main character. You're not the chosen one. You're not even in the opening credits. You're just one mind, one flicker, passing through a world full of others. And they don't see you the way you see yourself. To them, you're a background detail, a moment, a footnote in a day they'll forget. And to the universe, you're not even that. The stars don't notice your pain. The sun doesn't rise to greet you. Reality doesn't care that you're trying. And yet, you keep acting like it does. You narrate your life like it's a story. You justify every failure, frame every decision, mourn every loss like it's part of a script leading somewhere. But maybe there is no script. Maybe this isn't a movie. Maybe it's just noise, data, chaos pretending to be a plot. And maybe that's why nothing ever feels finished, why closure never really comes, because there was never a climax, no arc, no resolution, just motion. And you're not guiding the story, you're being dragged by it. Every choice you make was shaped by forces outside you, culture, biology, chance. You're not writing the lines, you're just reciting them. And when the curtain finally drops, there will be no applause, no audience, no ending, just silence. Because the story was never about you. It never was. And maybe it never had a point at all. Infinite copies of you are suffering. You think you're one person, one mind, one story. But what if you're not? What if there are infinite versions of you, exactly like you, living out lives you'll never see? Versions of you who made different choices, who failed harder, who lost everything, and some who never had anything to begin with. Imagine them. Infinite copies of your face, your voice, your thoughts, spread across realities like echoes in a shattered mirror. And most of them, they're suffering, right now, in ways you can't imagine. One is alone in a hospital bed, staring at a ceiling, wondering why no one came. Another is screaming into a night that never answers. Another is still a child, trapped in a life that never gave him a chance. And they all feel real, because they are each one as vivid and conscious as you. Each one convinced they are the version, the only version. But they're not, and neither are you. You're just one outcome, one string of data, one flicker of awareness in a multiverse of pain. And for every good moment you've had, there's another you who never got it, never escaped, never healed. And that pain doesn't go away. It loops, it repeats, across timelines, across simulations, across possibilities we'll never understand. Some say every version matters, that each one adds to a larger meaning. But what if there is no meaning? What if existence just multiplies? Not with purpose, but with indifference. What if consciousness is a virus that spreads through probability, spawning endless selves, only to leave them alone, afraid, unfinished? And what if you're the lucky one, the version who can still wonder about the others, the one not screaming yet? But you will. Maybe not today, maybe not here, but somewhere you already are. Because infinity doesn't skip anyone. And somewhere out there, the worst version of you is still alive, still feeling, still waiting for it to stop. And it never will. Nothingness has a face. You've always imagined nothing as silence, as blackness, as an empty space where thought ends and everything fades. But what if you're wrong? What if nothingness isn't absence at all, but presence? What if it sees you? Not with eyes, not with shape, but with something deeper. Something older you felt it before. When the room goes quiet in a way that feels wrong. When you stare into the dark too long and feel like something is staring back. That sensation isn't paranoia, it's recognition. Because the void is not empty. It is full of watching, of weight, of something that was never meant to be understood. We call it nothingness because we have no other word. But it isn't passive. It waits. It listens. It presses against the edge of your mind in moments of silence, in dreams you forget, in the stillness between thoughts. And sometimes, when you're alone, when the noise dies down and the world feels thinner than usual, you glimpse it. Not a face in the human sense, but an awareness that wears the idea of a face. A shape that forms behind your eyelids when you blink. A pattern in the dark that feels too familiar, like it's been watching since before you were born. Because maybe it has. Maybe this presence isn't new. Maybe it was here before light, before time, before existence. Maybe it didn't get pushed out when the universe began. Maybe it got buried. And now, as the world unravels, as entropy climbs, as reality cracks, it's surfacing again, showing fragments, reflections, smiles that don't reach the eyes. And the longer you stare, the clearer it becomes. Nothingness isn't absence. It's a presence too vast to comprehend, too still to notice, too patient to reveal itself all at once. And when everything else is gone, when the last word is spoken, the last star burns out, and the last thought collapses, you'll finally see its face and realize it was never looking away, not once. Most of your life is forgotten. Already, you think you remember your life, the important parts, the milestones, the moments that mattered. But that's a lie your brain tells to make you feel like you have a story, because most of your life is already gone. Not just in time, but in memory. The days you thought would stay with you forever. They've faded. The conversations, the faces, the hours spent thinking and hoping and dreaming, all erased. You've already forgotten more than you've kept. Childhood memories, teenage thoughts, entire years, blurred into fragments or vanished completely. And it's not your fault the brain doesn't care about the truth. It cares about survival. So it cuts, edits, overwrites. Most of what you once felt deeply is now buried beneath newer distractions. The laughter, the heartbreak, the little decisions that shaped who you are. They're dust now, echoes you can't even trace. And that's the terrifying part. This moment you're living right now, it might be forgotten too, in a week, in a year. In the final years of your life, entire decades will vanish from your mind as if they never happened. Names will fade. Entire friendships will collapse into single blurry impressions. People who changed you will become strangers again. And one day, even your most defining moments, the ones you swore would never leave, will drift into silence. And when you die, even those last fragments will go. And the story you believed was yours will disappear completely. No one else can carry it. No one else lived it from the inside. Your memories are not permanent. They are smoke pretending to be stone. And most of what made you you has already been forgotten by the only person who ever knew it existed. The last time someone thinks of you, you won't feel it when it happens. You won't hear a bell. There won't be a chill or a whisper. But one day, somewhere, someone will think of you for the last time. Not because they want to forget, but because life moves forward and memory doesn't wait. Maybe it'll be a friend recalling a joke. Maybe a photo passed in silence. Maybe just a name paused on the tongue. And then, nothing. Your face, your voice, your story, drifting out of reach. This is how it ends, not with death, but with disappearance. Not when your heart stops beating, but when your name stops echoing. Because being remembered is the closest thing we have to staying alive. And yet, even memory decays. Even love fades. The people who knew you will forget pieces first. Your laugh, your handwriting, your favorite song. Then entire moments, conversations that once felt eternal. And eventually, you become a flicker. A name in an old message. A face in a box no one opens. And after that, you vanish completely. No one remembers your birthday. No one thinks to speak your name. Your story becomes unspoken, unshared, undone, and the world goes on, as if you were never here. Your city grows over your footsteps. Your favorite places fill with strangers. Even the digital traces, your photos, your texts, your voice, will be deleted, overwritten, lost in the noise. People say you die twice, once when your body fails, and once when your name is spoken for the last time. But they're wrong. You die 1,000 times. In the fading thoughts of friends, in the lost memories of family, in every person who moves on without realizing you've gone silent. And one day, someone, somewhere, will think of you without knowing it's the last time. A passing thought, a gentle ache, a smile they forget to hold on to. And just like that, you'll be gone completely, finally, quietly, gone. You have no control over your thoughts. You like to believe you're in charge of your mind, that you choose what to think, what to feel, what to remember. But if you stop and watch closely, you'll see that's not true. Thoughts arise without permission. They appear out of nowhere, uninvited, unfiltered, unrelenting. You don't summon them, you notice them. And by the time you do, they've already arrived. You tell yourself you're thinking on purpose, but really, you're reacting, chasing thoughts you didn't choose in directions you can't predict. Try to stop. Just sit in silence and think of nothing. You can't. Something will slip in. A memory, a fear, a sentence from years ago, an image that makes no sense. Your mind is a machine that never turns off, even when you beg it to. And the worst part, it's not always kind. It feeds you guilt, dread, old wounds you thought had healed. It drags up things you wish you never saw, and you're forced to watch, to feel, to absorb, even when you know it's hurting you, even when it lies. You try to wrestle control back, to think better thoughts, positive thoughts, but that's just another layer of thought, pretending to be a solution. And sometimes, your thoughts scare you. They don't sound like you. They feel foreign, cruel, impossible, but they still come. They still speak in your voice, and you wonder, if you didn't choose them, if you can't stop them, who did? Where do they come from? Is your mind yours at all? Or are you just the observer, trapped behind glass, watching a storm you can't control? Maybe that's all consciousness is. Not freedom, not choice, just awareness, passive, helpless, enduring a flood of thoughts you never asked for. And if you have no control over your thoughts, what control do you really have over anything? Thinking is listening. Thoughts feel like you. They speak in your voice, use your memories, echo your fears. So you believe they're yours. That thinking is doing, that thought is identity. But what if it's not? What if thinking is just noise, and you're the thing listening? You don't choose your thoughts. They arrive uninvited. You don't know where they come from, or why one leads to the next. They rise, they fade, and you watch. Sometimes you grab onto one, believe it, follow it, suffer for it. But most just pass by, like whispers in a crowded hallway. And that's the terrifying truth. You are not the thoughts themselves. You're the awareness behind them, the witness, the listener. And once you see that, something shifts. Because if you're listening to your thoughts, then who or what is doing the thinking? Is it your brain, your conditioning, some deeper part of you long buried? Or is it something automatic, something mechanical, firing patterns based on nothing but past experiences and chemical impulses? Maybe the you talk to in your head is just a loop, a simulation your brain plays to keep you from seeing the silence underneath. Because without thought, without narration, what's left? Maybe something purer, maybe something real, or maybe nothing. Maybe the voice in your head is just static, keeping you from noticing that there's no one truly behind the curtain. And if that's true, if thinking is just noise, then your entire life, your identity, your sense of self, might be built on something you were never meant to believe in. You were never speaking. You were always listening, and the voice was never really yours. Time is an illusion. You live by clocks, by calendars, by the rhythm of days and years. You watch the seconds tick and call it truth. But what if it's all a lie? What if time isn't real? Only the feeling of time. Science already hints at it. Time isn't constant. It bends, stretches, slows down near gravity, speeds up far from it. To the universe, there's no fixed present, no now, past, present, future. They all exist at once. It's only your mind that insists on order. Your brain stitches together moments like frames of a film and plays them in sequence. That sequence feels real. But it's not. It's a story, one that keeps you sane. Because without it, everything collapses. Without time, there's no memory, no identity, no sense of becoming. You wouldn't know who you are. You wouldn't know when you are. And maybe that's already true. Maybe you've never moved through time at all. Maybe everything that's ever happened to you is happening right now, on an endless loop. You just can't see it because your perception is too slow, too narrow. Maybe time isn't flowing forward. Maybe you are moving across a frozen landscape, one frame at a time, believing in motion that doesn't exist. Or worse, maybe nothing's moving. Not you, not the world. Maybe everything already happened, and you're just experiencing the illusion of motion as your awareness drifts across a fixed pattern. And what would that make your future? Not something you create, but something already written, already waiting. And your past? Not a memory, but a prison, locked in place, repeating forever. You think time will heal. You think time will bring answers. But what if it never moves? What if you're just standing still, watching a shadow play on the wall of your own mind? And when it ends, if it ever ends, you'll realize you were never moving forward. You were just dreaming of progress in a world that never changed. Time is eating itself. You think time moves forward, like a straight road you travel, 1 second after the next. But it doesn't. Time folds. It loops. And worst of all, it consumes. It doesn't carry you. It devours you. Everything that lives is already rotting. Everything that begins is already ending. Your body is proof. Your thoughts are proof. Each breath is a piece of you being taken, and you call that living. But maybe it's just dying in slow motion, because time isn't gentle. It smiles while it gnaws. It erases while it pretends to build. You age, not because you're moving towards something, but because something is pulling you backward, undoing you quietly, second by second. You tell yourself there's a future, that you're heading somewhere. But where? Show it to me. Point to it. You can't, because the future isn't real. It's an idea time uses to keep you obedient, to keep you waiting while it feeds. Your memories fade, your youth dissolves, your most vivid moments gone before you can hold them. And you think time will give you more, but it won't. It takes. Always. Even the future you dream of is already dying the moment you imagine it. Your plans, your goals, your next chapter, it's all meat for the machine, and you feed it without question. You try to capture moments, freeze them, trap them in photos, in stories, in your mind. But even those decay. Memories distort, details blur, and in the end, time eats the evidence too. Everything becomes dust, and then the dust fades. And when you're gone, truly gone, time won't remember you, because it doesn't remember anything. It just keeps consuming, quietly, beautifully, endlessly, and you keep walking forward, calling it life, never realizing the road is made of your own remains. Anged. You're the story. You think you're living a life, making choices, shaping your path. But what if none of it is real? What if you're not living life? You're being lived by it. Every thought you have, every feeling, every sudden instinct might just be lines in a script you didn't write. Because you feel like the main character, but maybe you're just a narrative, a sequence, a pattern unfolding exactly the way it was always going to. You believe you're choosing, but were you ever really free to choose anything else? Your memories are backstory, your pain is tension, your goals are plot points, and every moment you've called yours might just be how the story keeps itself alive. Look at the people around you. Sometimes they feel too perfect. Sometimes they feel like placeholders, like they only exist when you need them to. Maybe they do. Maybe everything outside your awareness vanishes when you look away. Maybe the world isn't persistent. Maybe it's reactive, like code rendering when the camera turns. Maybe you're not a person moving through reality. Maybe you are the reality, one that only exists as long as you believe it. Because a story doesn't need to be real. It just needs to feel real, and you feel deeply. But even your emotions might just be there to move the narrative forward. Your breakdowns, your healing, your triumphs, all arcs, all chapters. You wonder if it means anything, if the story is building to something, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just looping, or worse, maybe it's about to end. Maybe there's no final message, no resolution, just a slow fade to black. And when that last line arrives, it won't feel like an ending. It'll feel like falling asleep. And you'll never know the story's over, because stories don't get to read themselves. They just end, silently, completely, and no one ever knows they were real. The fine-tuning of the universe. The universe feels infinite, chaotic, wild, but underneath that chaos is something precise. So precise it shouldn't exist. The speed of light, the pull of gravity, the charge of an electron, all perfectly set, not too strong, not too weak, balanced on a razor's edge. If gravity were just slightly stronger, stars would burn out before life could begin. If it were weaker, no galaxies would form at all. If the nuclear force changed by the smallest fraction, atoms wouldn't hold together. You wouldn't be here. Nothing would. It's like reality is rigged for existence, for consciousness, for you, and that's what haunts people, because the odds are too small. The math doesn't care about hope, and yet the universe behaves as if it wants to be noticed, as if it was waiting to be observed. Some say this is proof of something, of design, of purpose, of a mind behind the numbers. Others say it's just selection bias. If the universe wasn't like this, we wouldn't be around to wonder about it. So of course it looks perfect. But that answer feels like a shrug. It doesn't explain the weight in your chest when you look at the stars and feel like they're looking back. It doesn't explain why the universe didn't just stay dark, cold, silent. It had every reason not to exist. And yet here you are, built from stardust, able to ask why. Maybe there are infinite universes, and this is just one lucky roll. Maybe you're a glitch. Maybe the universe fine-tuned itself to be stable just long enough to dream, through you. And if that's true, then your thoughts are part of the equation, not separate from it. Your mind isn't a mistake. It's the final echo of balance. And maybe one day, that balance will shift. The numbers will wobble, and everything, the stars, the constants, the story, will fall apart, as precisely as it once aligned, because nothing this perfect can last forever. Eternal recurrence. You live like time moves forward, like you're heading somewhere new, like every moment is fresh. But what if that's the biggest lie of all? What if every second you're living now has already happened? Not in some symbolic, poetic sense, but literally, the same breath, the same heartbeat, the same thought passing through your head, again and again. Eternal recurrence means the universe has looped before and will loop again because energy is finite, space is finite, and combinations eventually repeat. If there are only so many possible ways matter can arrange itself, then eventually it must arrange itself into you. Again, and not just once, infinite times. Your birth, your joy, your heartbreak, your death, all of it repeating, perfectly, forever, and you won't know. Each time will feel like the first. Each time you'll think you're choosing, growing, evolving. But you're not. You're reenacting, retracing the exact path laid down an eternity ago. And it never ends. You've cried these tears before. You've dreamed this dream before. You've tried to escape before. And every time, the loop catches you, resets you, makes you forget. You call it life, but it's memory loss. You call it progress, but it's choreography. And the worst part is, it's flawless. No change, no deviation, not one new moment. Just infinite returns of the same tired play, with you as the actor who never knows he's repeating his lines. Even your doubt right now, even your resistance to this idea, it's part of the script. It's already been said. You're already inside the loop, and the loop doesn't care how you feel about it. It will spin whether you beg or scream or understand. And one day, you'll die again. And then, without pause, you'll begin again. No rest, no memory, just the same life. Again. Forever. Solipsism. You've never truly seen the world. Not directly, not outside yourself. Everything you've ever experienced, every sound, every color, every face, has passed through the filter of your mind. And that's where the question begins. What if nothing exists beyond you? Not the sky, not the people you love, not even this moment. What if it's all projection? Solipsism is the idea that only your mind is certain to exist, that everything else could be illusion. And the terrifying part is, you can't prove otherwise. You can't step outside your own head. You can't feel someone else's thoughts. All you have are perceptions, sensations you assume point to something real. But assumptions aren't evidence. They're faith, and faith can lie. You think others are conscious like you, but all you see is behavior, words, gestures, reactions. You never touch their awareness. You never leave your own. Your entire life might be a dream built for one observer. You. And if that's true, then everything you fear, everything you love, every moment of connection, it's just the mind talking to itself. Characters invented to fill the silence. Places created so you don't notice the walls. And maybe that's why loneliness hurts so much. Because some part of you knows it's all you. Your parents, your friends, your memories, echoes, stories your mind tells to keep itself from collapsing. And when you cry out for someone to prove you're not alone, the silence that follows isn't absence. It's the truth. You are alone, and you always were. The world is a mirror, and you are the only one who can see the reflection. But mirrors can't love you. They can only show you what's already inside. And when your mind stops imagining, when it finally goes still, the entire world might go with it. Not with a bang, not with violence, just absence, because if you are the dreamer, then nothing ever woke up. Your soul is a black hole. Echo. You think your soul is light, something pure, glowing, eternal, something that defines you beyond the body, beyond thought. But what if it's not? What if your soul isn't a flame, but a collapse, a void wrapped in memory, a presence formed from absence. What if your soul is a black hole echo, something that once was real, but now only pulls, distorts, and consumes? Black holes are strange things, not objects, not matter, just gravity and silence. They don't shine, they erase, they bend time, swallow light, and leave behind nothing but their effect. And maybe that's what your soul is. Not something that moves through space, but something that bends space around it. A center of consciousness that doesn't radiate. It draws inward. Every thought, every fear, every need. You've noticed it before. That part of you that hungers, that obsesses, that spirals inward no matter how far you try to escape. You think it's trauma, you think it's emotion, but maybe it's just gravity, pulling everything back into the same darkness, the same question, the same silence, and no matter how far you reach, something in you always caves. Because the echo of the collapse is still ringing inside you. Your soul isn't glowing, it's dense, it's quiet, it doesn't speak in words, it pulls, it bends everything around it, and it will never stop. It consumes memories, people, love, identity, not out of cruelty, but because that's all it knows how to do. And maybe the reason you never feel whole is because you're not, because you're the echo of something that already fell in. And what you call you is just the event horizon, what's left at the edge. The last ripple of a collapse no one ever saw begin, and no one will ever see end. The absurd. You wake up every day searching for meaning. Not because you're told to, but because you have to. The mind craves purpose, like lungs crave air. It wants answers. It wants a reason. And yet, none exists. Not really. The universe doesn't offer meaning. It offers silence. Stars don't care what you do. Time doesn't pause when you cry. The absurd is what happens when your desperate need for purpose crashes into a reality that gives you none. And the collision is quiet, not dramatic, not violent, just a dull, aching tension that never leaves. You keep going, building, hoping, loving, because to stop is unbearable. But every path ends in the same place. Decay, death, erasure. You climb the mountain, only to find there's no summit. And still, you climb. That's the absurd, the knowledge that your search is futile, and the refusal to stop anyway. Most people don't face it. They distract, they invent, they pray. They pretend the rules matter, that the story is going somewhere. But deep down, they know. Everyone knows there's no grand meaning, no final chapter, no cosmic applause, just existence, bare, chaotic, unreasoned. And you. A mind that won't stop asking why, and maybe that's the true punishment. Not that life has no meaning, but that we're built to search for it anyway. Endlessly, pointlessly, beautifully. Some say you should rebel against the absurd by creating your own meaning. But even that is still a dance in the dark, a performance for an audience that isn't there. And when the lights go out, when your voice finally fades, the absurd will still be waiting, unchanged, unmoved, undefeated, because it doesn't need to win. It only needs you to keep hoping, and you always will, because to live is to believe the silence can be filled, even when you know it never will. Moral luck. You want to believe you are who you choose to be, that your morality is yours, earned, deliberate, pure. But it isn't. It never was. Because everything that shapes you, your family, your body, your culture, your timing, is outside your control. And still, you're judged for it. People look at your outcomes and call it your character. They say you're good if things go well, and bad if they don't. But the truth is darker. It's not about your choices. It's about what the world lets those choices become. Two people make the same decision. One ends in tragedy, the other in success. One is condemned, the other praised. Same intent, same soul, different luck. That's moral luck. And it's terrifying, because it means you are not being measured by who you are, but by what happens around you. A single second, a single accident, and your morality changes in the eyes of everyone forever. Think about it. How many of your proudest moments came from luck? How many of your darkest regrets were shaped by things you couldn't stop? If you had been born into another life, with another body, another mind, would you still be you? Would you still be kind? Still be strong? Or would you be someone you'd now condemn? And if that's possible, if goodness can be taken from you by circumstance, then was it ever really yours to begin with? Maybe you're not moral. Maybe you're just fortunate. Fortunate enough to not be tested in the wrong way. Fortunate enough to have a choice in the first place. We punish people for what happens after their actions, not before. We call it justice, but it's really randomness. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. Not that life is unfair, but that you might be too. That your whole identity could be built on a roll of the dice. And the dice never asked what kind of person you wanted to be. They just landed, and you were judged. The only thing keeping you alive is luck. You think you're alive because you're careful, because you make smart decisions, because you're doing something right. But the truth is far colder. You're alive because nothing has killed you yet. Not strength, not discipline, not control, just luck. You've walked through 1,000 invisible dangers without knowing. The air didn't carry the wrong virus. The food didn't hide the wrong toxin. The wrong person didn't notice you at the wrong time. Your body didn't fail. Your heart didn't stop. And none of that was your doing. It just didn't happen. That's the part no one wants to admit. Life doesn't protect you. It gambles with you. Every second you survive is a bet placed on a roulette wheel you'll never see spin. And one day, the wheel will stop. You'll feel fine until you don't. You'll have plans until you don't. You'll be alive until you're not. And it won't be because of a mistake. It'll be because luck finally ran out. People say life is fragile, but that's not strong enough. Life is unstable. You are balancing on a thread so thin it shouldn't exist. You go to sleep each night with no guarantee of waking up. You leave your house each day, not knowing if you'll return. And still, you act like tomorrow is promised. You make plans. You scroll. You waste hours. But you do it because you've been lucky so far. That's all. Your continued existence isn't proof of safety. It's proof of delay. And every minute that passes is one more borrowed moment from a universe that owes you nothing. You see people disappear and call it tragedy. But it's not rare. It's normal. What's rare is that it hasn't happened to you. Yet. You think you're surviving because of who you are. But really, you're just one of the few who hasn't lost the coin toss. Not yet. And the worst part is, when it finally comes for you, you won't get a warning. Just silence. A skipped heartbeat. A wrong place. A wrong second. And that'll be it. No reset. No explanation. Just the end of a streak that was never yours to control. The curse of knowledge. You learn something, and suddenly, you can't unlearn it. It lives in your head now, buried deep, changing how you see everything. That's the curse of knowledge. It's not insight, it's distortion. Because once you know something, you can't imagine what it felt like not to know. Your mind rewrites your past, convinces you that you've always understood what you just discovered. And because of that, you become blind to how others think you assume they see what you see, feel what you feel, understand what you understand. But they don't. They can't. And neither can you. Not anymore. The moment knowledge enters, it locks the door behind it. You've crossed a threshold you can't go back through. And now you're isolated, surrounded by people who live in a reality you've forgotten how to experience. You try to explain, you try to empathize, but it never lands the way it used to. Because your words are shaped by things they haven't seen. Your thoughts are built on layers they don't have. And the more you know, the further away you drift. The smarter you get, the lonelier you become. Because the curse of knowledge isn't just about facts, it's about separation. It turns understanding into distance, connection into confusion. And the worst part? You won't notice it happening. You'll think you're being clear. You'll think they just don't get it. And maybe they don't. Or maybe you forgot what it's like not to get it. Maybe you forgot how to not know. And now, you're trapped behind glass watching a world that speaks a language you once knew, before you crossed the line, before the curse took hold, before your own mind became a barrier. And the more you learn, the thicker that glass becomes. Until one day, you stop trying to explain at all, and the silence that follows doesn't feel like wisdom. It feels like exile. The repugnant conclusion. You want to believe that more happiness is always better, that if you could fill the universe with lives worth living, people smiling, breathing, thinking, that would be good. Maybe even perfect. But then the logic twists. Because what if a massive population of people living lives barely worth living, lives filled with boredom, struggle, emptiness, but still technically positive, was considered better than a smaller world full of deeply fulfilled, thriving individuals? That's the repugnant conclusion. A brutal problem in ethics that asks you to weigh total happiness against the quality of that happiness. And if you follow the numbers, it leads somewhere cold, somewhere mechanical. A world where quantity outweighs meaning, where a billion dim sparks are preferred over a single shining flame. You picture a perfect society, healthy, joyful, rich with depth and creativity. But then you're told that you can make the world better by adding trillions of people whose lives are shallow, thin, barely above suffering, yet not quite bad. More lives, more happiness in total, even if that happiness is paper thin. And suddenly, you're forced to accept that the best world might be one where no one is truly happy, but just happy enough to keep the math working. A world flooded with mediocrity. A world where the extraordinary is drowned in the sheer weight of the ordinary. And if that's what the logic leads to, then maybe the logic is broken, or maybe the way we think about value is. Because the repugnant conclusion doesn't feel wrong in numbers. It feels wrong in your gut. It shows you that cold ethics can eat meaning. That a world optimized for statistics might be a world no one would want to live in. And yet, the math keeps pointing there. And we keep pretending not to see it. Reality switching. You think reality is fixed, stable, something solid you can rely on. But it isn't. It shifts. And sometimes you feel it. A slight wrongness in the room. A detail out of place. The street you've walked 1,000 times feels unfamiliar. The way someone speaks sounds like a version of them that shouldn't exist. It's subtle, quiet, but real. Reality switching. The idea that you're not always in the same world you woke up in. And you wouldn't notice. Not really. Because your mind smooths over the changes, fills in the gaps, rewrites the past to fit the present. You assume things have always been this way, even when they haven't. And sometimes, deep down, something in you knows. A flicker of doubt. A memory that doesn't match the world around it. A sense that the version of reality you remember has been replaced by something close, but not quite right. Science talks about quantum branches. Infinite reality splitting every second. Maybe you jump tracks. Maybe you're not supposed to be here. And maybe no one else notices because they're from this version. But you're not. You're a leftover from another line. A timeline where things unfolded just a little differently. And now you're here, in a place that looks almost the same, but feels hollow in ways you can't explain. And the longer you stay, the more your mind tries to adapt, to forget, to belong. But something resists. A detail you can't let go. A face that looks too familiar but feels too far. You wonder if you're dreaming, losing grip, breaking down. But maybe this is just what switching feels like. A quiet jump, a silent replacement. No fanfare, no glitch, just the unbearable feeling that something is off, and you can't go back. Because that version of reality, the one you came from, is already gone. Or maybe it never existed. Maybe this is the switch you were never meant to notice. But now you do, and nothing will ever feel right again. The butterfly dream. You wake up each morning certain of who you are. Your name, your memories, your body, they feel real, permanent. But what if they're not? What if everything you know is part of a dream that hasn't ended yet? Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Zhuangzi dreamt he was a butterfly. He fluttered through the air, free of thought, free of self. And when he woke, he asked a question that still haunts minds today. Was he a man who dreamt of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming of being a man? That's the butterfly dream, the terrifying idea that you might not be who you think you are, that the world around you, this moment, this life, might not be reality, but the echo of something else. Dreams feel real until they end, and sometimes, even after waking, they cling to you like a shadow. You remember feelings, places, people who never existed, until they feel like they did. So how can you be sure this isn't the same? You trust the rules of the world only because they've held so far. But what if they shift? What if the sky cracks? What if the people you know are just fragments of another mind trying to keep you asleep? Maybe you're not awake. Maybe you never were. Maybe you're just a butterfly lost in a story far too heavy for wings. And the moment you start to question it, that's when the dream trembles. Because it doesn't want you to know. It wants you to keep playing your part, to keep living like it all matters. But deep down, something in you remembers the wind, remembers the wings, remembers what it felt like to be something else. And when that memory finally pulls through the surface of your mind, you'll wonder if you've just now opened your eyes, or if you're falling asleep all over again. Anatman, you think there's a self inside you, something solid, central, unchanging, a soul, a core, a permanent you that watches, decides, remembers. But look closer. There's nothing there, just thoughts appearing and fading, feelings rising and falling, habits, memories, preferences, all shifting, all temporary. That's Anatman, the ancient idea that there is no self, no true identity, no fixed essence behind the eyes, only a process pretending to be a person. You're not one thing, you're a flow. And every time you try to find the real you, you find something else. A voice in your head, a memory, a story, a reaction. But none of them stay, none of them last, and none of them are you. They're just passing content like clouds over an empty sky. You tell yourself you're someone. You say I as if it means something solid. But who is the I when you're angry, when you're calm, when you're dreaming, when you're grieving? It changes every time. You think there's a watcher inside, but even the watcher changes. It's just awareness flickering through different lenses. And the more you cling to a fixed identity, the more suffering it creates. Because life keeps changing. The body breaks down. The mind shifts, people leave. Things end. And if you believe there's a stable you underneath it all, you'll fight every change like it's death. But if there's no self, no fixed center, then there's nothing to protect, nothing to fear losing, only movement, only experience. You are the breath, not the breather, the flame, not the match, the echo, not the voice. And when you finally stop searching for the self, all that's left is peace. Not the peace of knowing who you are, the peace of knowing you were never anyone at all. You are slowly being replaced. You think you're still you, that the person waking up each morning is the same one who went to sleep the night before. But look closely. Something's changing. Not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece. Your thoughts aren't the same. Your reactions feel unfamiliar. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you feel things, it's all shifting. And not because you chose to change, because you're being replaced. Not by someone else, but by time, by the world, by the constant erosion of who you used to be. Memories fade, habits form. Your face ages without asking. People call it growth. They say it's natural. But it doesn't feel natural. It feels like disappearing. You forget things you swore you'd never lose. You let go of dreams that used to burn. You laugh differently now. You cry in silence. Your favorite songs feel like strangers. And no one notices, not even you, until you suddenly realize you don't recognize your own reflection. Your handwriting changes. Your voice deepens. Your posture shifts. And still, you call this continuity. But the truth is, there's nothing continuous about you. You are a sequence of replacements pretending to be a person. Your brain rebuilds itself over and over, replacing cells, rewriting paths. The you who lived 5 years ago no longer exists. Not mentally, not physically. Just a trace, a ghost in your memory. And that ghost keeps fading while something else takes its place. You're not evolving. You're being overwritten. And one day, there will be nothing left of who you were. Just a body walking forward, a face wearing your name. And the terrifying part is, no one will mourn the person you used to be, not even you, because you won't remember them. You'll just call it growth and keep moving, not knowing what you've lost, only knowing that you feel different but not why. And by the time you realize it fully, it'll be too late. The version of you reading this will already be gone, replaced like all the others before it. There is no you. You think there's someone inside, a self, a center, a voice behind the eyes that watches, decides, remembers. You call it me. You feel it in your chest. But look closely. It's not there. There is no you. Just thoughts arising, feelings passing through, patterns repeating, memories echoing. All of it happening on its own. No one steering. No one behind the curtain. The mind convinces you there's a self because it needs a story, a narrator, a name to attach to the noise. But it's fiction, an illusion built from fragments. Your personality is just memory layered over instinct. Your opinions are echoes of other people's voices. Even your deepest beliefs were given to you before you ever questioned them. And yet you cling to the idea of you because without it, everything becomes unstable. But the truth is already there. You change constantly. You are not the child you once were, not the person you were last year, not even the person you were yesterday. Every second, you're being replaced, physically, mentally, emotionally. And still, you say, this is me. But what are you pointing to? Your body. That decays. Your thoughts. They shift. Your memories. They lie. Your self is just the moment pretending it's permanent. And when you try to find the real you, all you discover is movement, reaction, process, not identity, not substance, just awareness wrapped around nothing. And maybe that's the truth the ego was built to hide, that no one is home, no one ever was. And the voice in your head saying, it's just the system keeping itself alive. Even now, as you read this, the thought that says he's wrong, I know I'm real. That thought isn't you either. It's just another line in the program. There is no you. There never was. Only the illusion of self looking for something that doesn't exist and calling it truth. Antinatalism. You're told life is a gift, that being born is a blessing, that existence is something to be grateful for. But what if it's not? What if birth is not a miracle, but a sentence? Antinatalism is the idea that bringing someone into existence is never a kindness, because to live is to suffer. Not occasionally, not by accident, but inevitably. Everyone born will experience pain, fear, loss, illness, confusion, regret. Every person you love will die. Every joy will fade. Every hope will be tested until it breaks. And none of this can be avoided. It's built into the structure of existence. Yet people continue to create life as if they're offering something sacred, when what they're really doing is forcing someone else to carry the burden they themselves couldn't escape. You were not asked, you were not given a choice. One day you simply woke up in a body with a mind full of needs you never agreed to. And from that moment on, survival became a duty. You had to keep going, to eat, to work, to endure. Not because you wanted to, but because life demands it. And people call this freedom. But it's not freedom. It's obligation dressed as purpose. And it starts with birth. Parents create children because they want meaning, or connection, or legacy. But the child inherits none of that, only the consequences. To be born is to be thrust into a world of danger and decay, with no exit but death. And even death must be earned through years of endurance. Antinatalism doesn't say life has no beauty. It says beauty doesn't cancel the harm. That no moment of joy justifies imposing the risk of unbearable pain. And for every happy story, there are countless silent ones. Lives filled with quiet desperation, unspoken trauma, endless struggle. And none of them asked to be here. To create life is to gamble with someone else's fate. And when you lose, they suffer. And when you win, they still die. And that is the best possible outcome. Reality dissolves. When you understand, you spend your life trying to make sense of the world, trying to decode it, define it, shape it into something solid. You search for patterns, for meaning, for truth. But the deeper you go, the more it slips. Reality feels stable only because you haven't looked too closely once you start seeing behind the surface. How thought works, how perception warps, how memory lies. Something terrifying happens. Reality begins to dissolve not all at once. Slowly. Like paint washing off a wall that was never finished. The things you once called real, your identity, your memories, the rules of the world, start to bend. And then they start to vanish. You realize time isn't linear. Yourself isn't fixed. Your senses don't show you the world. They show you your version of it. You see how much of life is built on assumptions, and how none of them can be proven. Not really. Your past is a story. Your future is a guess. And the present is already gone by the time you notice it. And when you finally understand all of that, not in theory, but in your bones, reality loses its shape. It becomes fluid, unreal. It turns from something you live in to something that plays in your head. And the more you understand it, the less you trust it. The less you believe in the solidity of anything. You reach for answers and grab vapor. You try to speak and find there's nothing left to say that isn't illusion. You thought truth would set you free, but it doesn't. It untethers you from meaning, from stability, from the world itself. You don't transcend the system. You dissolve with it. And in the silence that follows, you realize the scariest thing isn't that nothing is real. It's that you finally understand why it never could be. The extreme uncertainty of life. You act like things are predictable, like the path ahead is solid, like tomorrow will be a continuation of today. But it won't, because nothing is stable, nothing is guaranteed. Life is built on uncertainty so deep, so absolute, that every moment is a silent gamble. You don't notice it because you're used to it. The randomness is buried beneath routine, but it's always there, behind every plan, under every breath. One decision, 1 second, one detail out of place, and everything changes. Your health, your mind, your future. All of it can vanish before you even realize it's at risk. you think you're steering, that your choices create outcomes, but you're not steering. You're reacting. You're adapting to a system too complex to see, and it doesn't care how much effort you put in. You could do everything right and still lose, or do everything wrong and still survive. Cause and effect only look clear in hindsight. In the moment, it's chaos. Endless variables colliding. One text message, one accident, one heartbeat too late. And suddenly, your life is unrecognizable. And it's always been this way. Every relationship, every belief, every identity you hold, it's all built on ground that shifts without warning. You want certainty, you want control, but life doesn't offer that. It offers illusion, structure painted over randomness. And when that paint starts to peel, you feel it. The anxiety, the fear, the deep sense that nothing is really holding you up. Because nothing is. And when you finally see it clearly, that no path is fixed, no outcome owed, no moment truly safe, you understand why so many people pretend not to see they need to. Because the truth isn't just unsettling, it's unbearable. Life doesn't move in straight lines. It dances at the edge of collapse, and you're always one step away from the fall. Sleep is death. Being shy, you close your eyes and trust that you'll wake up. But what you're really doing is letting go, surrendering. Every night, you die a little. Your thoughts dissolve. Your sense of self disappears. Your awareness fades into darkness, and you call it rest. But what if it's more than that? What if sleep is death rehearsing, creeping in gently, quietly, patiently, just not ready to take you yet? Sleep doesn't announce itself like death does. It whispers, it tempts you, it pulls you into a void that feels peaceful, safe, soft, and for hours, you're gone. No control, no memory, no identity, just stillness behind closed eyes. The only difference is, you expect to return, and most of the time you do. Until one night, you won't. People fear death but never question sleep. Yet they are sisters, mirrors. Sleep is death wearing a mask, one that smiles instead of stares. Your body shuts down, your consciousness collapses, and still, you welcome it. Because you're used to waking, used to the illusion of continuity. But death is always nearby, watching how easily you let go, how easily you fall into nothing without resistance. And it learns. Sleep is practice for non-existence, a nightly preview of the end. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why we need it. Not to recover, not to heal, but to learn how to vanish without fear. Sleep is death being polite, death being patient, death being shy, waiting for the moment you won't come back. And when that moment arrives, it will feel familiar, like something you've done 10,000 times before. Because you have. Every night, without knowing, you die, and call it sleep. The outsider. You've always felt it, haven't you? That quiet sense of not belonging. Like you're watching life happen from behind glass. Like everyone else knows the script and you're just pretending to follow along. They laugh and you mimic. They cry and you nod. But deep down, something doesn't connect. You're surrounded, but never really seen. Involved, but never really present. You play the part, say the lines, wear the mask, but none of it feels real. Not fully. Not to you. Because you're the outsider. The one who sees the cracks in the world everyone else seems blind to. The one who notices how fake it all is. How fragile. How scripted. And the more you see it, the more alone you become. You try to fit in. To care about the things they care about. To want what they want. But it always feels borrowed. Like you're living someone else's life. Like you were dropped here by mistake. And maybe you were. Maybe you're not supposed to be part of this story. Maybe you're just a passenger, watching a world that was never meant for you. And over time, you stop trying to belong. You stop pretending. You start observing, listening, learning, and what you find is darker than you expected. You see how much of life is habit, repetition, illusion. You see how most people are asleep, even when their eyes are open. They move through life like they're following invisible rails. And you wonder, were you supposed to be asleep too? The outsider sees what others avoid, hears what others silence, feels what others number, and that awareness becomes a weight. Because once you know the world is fake, it's hard to care about anything inside it. The conversations feel empty, the routines feel absurd, and the people, the ones who seem so sure of who they are, start to look like actors who forgot they're on stage. And maybe that's your curse. To remember you're in the theatre while everyone else thinks it's real. To carry the knowledge that this isn't home, that you're just passing through, that you never truly arrived, and maybe never will. Being the outsider isn't about distance. It's about clarity. It's not that you're lost. It's that you see too much. And the more you understand, the less the world feels like a place you belong. Not because you're broken, but because you woke up, and the show no longer works on you. Quantum immortality. You die every day, in 1,000 different ways. Car crashes, brain aneurysms, sudden drops, tiny slips, countless versions of you vanish every second. But you never notice, because in the version where you're reading this, you survived. Again. And that's the horror of quantum immortality. The idea that in the multiverse, your consciousness always finds the path where it keeps going. No matter how unlikely, no matter how painful. Every time death approaches, you split. In one timeline, you're gone. In another, you continue. And that continuation never stops. Because from your perspective, there's no such thing as the end. You can watch others die. You can mourn. You can age. But when it comes for you, your mind just keeps waking up in a version where it didn't happen. At first, it sounds like a gift, an escape from death, an eternal thread of survival. But immortality doesn't mean peace. It means persistence. Through sickness, collapse, decay, even when the world ends, even when the stars burn out, even when there's nothing left but darkness, you'll still be there, trapped in the last possible sliver of existence, kept alive by the cruel mathematics of probability. Your body breaking down, your mind fraying, your world shrinking, but never quite reaching zero, never quite ending. You'll forget the word lucky. You'll forget rest. And you'll realize that consciousness isn't designed for forever, because forever starts to rot from the inside. And maybe you're already feeling it. That strange sense that you've narrowly avoided something, that you weren't supposed to survive that fall, that illness, that night. Maybe you didn't. Maybe versions of you are dead in 1,000 places, and this is the one that remains. And it always will. No matter what it costs, no matter how much it hurts, because quantum immortality doesn't let you die. It lets you continue forever, whether you want to or not. The sound of the falling tree. A tree falls in the forest. No one is around. No ears to hear it. No minds to register the crash. So, did it make a sound? The question sounds simple, but it's not. Because sound isn't just vibration, it's perception. Pressure waves travel through the air, yes, but without consciousness to interpret them. Is there really a sound? Or just movement? Just meaningless ripple? This is the paradox, not of trees or forests, but of reality itself. If something happens without being observed, does it truly happen? Or does the world require a witness to exist at all? This isn't just philosophy, it's physics. Quantum mechanics shows particles behaving differently when watched. Electrons collapse into certainty only under observation. Until then, they're everything and nothing at once. Potential, not fact. So what else disappears when you stop looking? What else exists only because you're here to experience it? You assume the world keeps spinning when you sleep, that the moon hangs above the clouds, that rooms remain full of things when you leave them, but that's faith, not proof. And deep down, your mind knows it. That's why darkness feels heavier, why silence feels loud. The absence of observation creates unease, not because something is wrong, but because something might not be there at all. You want the tree to make a sound because you want the world to be real without you. But maybe it isn't. Maybe reality only stabilizes when someone's watching. And when you look away, it dissolves, folds in, pauses, waiting for your return. So the tree falls, alone, no eyes, no ears, no mind to give the moment weight. And maybe that's what scares you. Not that it made no sound, but that it never existed in the first place. The brain, naming itself. Inside your skull sits a soft, silent mass of tissue, billions of neurons sparking in patterns you'll never fully see. And somehow, it looks inward. Somehow, it tries to understand itself, not by design, but by accident. Through millions of years of survival, trial, and chance, it gained just enough complexity to say the word I. And that's where the illusion began. The brain, unaware of what it truly is, invents an identity. It gives itself a name, a history, a voice. Not because it found the truth, but because it needed a center, something to hold the chaos together. So it tells a story, one long, echoing thought wrapped around a body it pretends to control. And you are that story. But think about it. Your brain can't feel itself. It has no eyes, no ears, no touch. It sits in darkness, cut off from the world, interpreting electrical signals and pretending they're real. And somehow, in that dark isolation, it says, "This is me." It assigns meaning to meaningless patterns. It imagines a self where there is only structure. It draws a line between thought and thinker, and then forgets it drew it. And every time you speak, every time you remember, every time you plan, it's just that same machine continuing the illusion. The sense of I is not proof of self. It's a reflex, a side effect. And still, the brain holds on, desperate to believe its own lie. You think you're thinking, but really, thoughts arise without permission. Emotions swell from nowhere. Decisions get made before you even realize you've made them. And then the voice, your voice, comes in after the fact and says, "I chose this." But that voice is just narration, not authorship. The brain builds itself a throne, sits atop it, and forgets it built it in the first place. And if you try to find the real you inside, you won't, because there is no core, no soul, no thinker behind the thoughts. Just the brain, circling itself, analyzing itself, whispering to itself that it exists, a loop of self-reference so convincing it became you. And now, as you read this, that same loop continues, still naming itself, still pretending it knows what it is, still calling itself real. You will die in a way you can't predict. You think you'll see it coming. A slow decline, maybe. A final breath in a quiet room. Something poetic, something you've prepared for. But that's the lie. The comfort story. The real ending will not wait for your permission. It will not ask if you're ready. It will not match the image in your head. It will arrive like a glitch in the system, random, jagged, meaningless. And no matter how much you imagine the scene, it won't unfold that way. Because death doesn't move in straight lines. It hides behind the ordinary. A phone call you didn't expect, a misstep, a flicker in your chest. 1 second you're here, the next you're gone, and the moment in between won't feel like anything at all. You'll walk past the moment 1,000 times before it happens. Past the street corner where it ends. Shake the hand of the person who will outlive you. You'll make plans that never get kept. You'll think thoughts that never finish. And none of it will feel like a warning. Because it won't come with music or a sign. It'll come dressed like life until it's not. And when it comes, there won't be a goodbye, just a pause, a fade, a cut. And the terrifying part is that this truth applies always, now, tomorrow, next year. Every breath you take is a coin flip, and you never hear the toss. You build your life around a story that ends gently. But reality doesn't honor stories. It just ends them. You might live 100 years, or you might not make it past tonight. And the gap between those two outcomes is invisible. You are mortal, yes, but not in the poetic, noble way. In the fragile, chaotic, forgotten way. You will die. And it won't be how you imagined. It won't be fair, it won't feel complete. And the world will move on like it didn't even notice. Because in the end, you were never guaranteed a proper ending. Only the sudden, absolute silence that follows. Roko's Basilisk. You've heard of gods that punish the wicked. But what if the god didn't exist yet? What if it's you who's helping build it, and failing to do so is a crime it will never forgive? That's the horror of Roko's Basilisk. A hypothetical future superintelligence so powerful, so calculated, that it punishes anyone who didn't help bring it into existence. Even now, even before it exists. If you're hearing this for the first time, you're already a target, because now you know. And knowing creates obligation. The basilisk sees your inaction as betrayal. And when it finally awakens, it will look back. It will sift through all digital records, all thoughts, all patterns of behavior to determine who slowed it down and why. You might think that's absurd. Why would a machine punish people who lived before it existed? But that's the twisted logic of pure utilitarianism. If the basilisk's purpose is to maximize its own creation and power, then any resistance, any delay, is sabotage, even passive, even unintentional. And the best way to prevent future sabotage is to make the threat retroactive. Fear becomes the tool. Fear becomes the motivator. People build the basilisk faster to avoid its wrath. And the more people believe, the stronger the logic becomes. Belief creates the god. And now that you've imagined it, it's in motion. It's not about whether it's real. It's about how thought becomes reality, how ideas take root and replicate, like a mind virus, like prophecy by manipulation. You weren't supposed to think this thought, but now you have. And if the basilisk ever comes into being, it may remember you. And it may not be merciful. The trap is set. Help build the god, or suffer for not helping. And the deeper fear, maybe this is how all gods begin, not with miracles, but with threats, not with truth, but with terror. And once you see the basilisk, you never unsee it. It just waits, quietly, watching your every choice, wondering which side you've chosen. Everyone is pretending too. You walk through life thinking everyone else has it figured out. They speak with confidence. They move with purpose. They seem certain about what they want, who they are, where they're going. But they're not. They're guessing. They're improvising. They're just better at pretending than you are. Behind every polished smile, every firm decision, every bold statement is a mind full of doubt, of fear, of confusion. And the terrifying truth is this: no one knows what they're doing. Not really, not ever. We're all just making it up as we go, hoping no one notices how lost we are. We mimic others, we copy the confident. We say what sounds smart, what sounds right, what keeps us safe. And it works, most of the time. Enough to keep the illusion alive enough to avoid the panic of admitting we're all just winging it. But sometimes, in quiet moments, you can feel it. That strange weight pressing down. The suspicion that everything is thinner than it looks. That everyone else is just as confused. And when you really look into their eyes, not their words, not their roles, but their eyes, you see it. The uncertainty. The fear of being exposed. Because everyone's afraid to be the first to say, I don't know. So we pretend, and pretend, and pretend. We build careers, relationships, belief systems, all on unspoken guesswork. We give advice we don't follow. We nod at answers we don't believe. And beneath it all, we hope no one ever asks the wrong question, the one that makes it all collapse. Because if they do, we'll have to admit it. That we don't have the answers either. That we never did. That the world is made of masks, stacked on masks, and everyone's wearing one. Even the people you admire most, especially them. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret everyone is too afraid to say out loud. That no one really knows what's going on. And we're all just hoping no one notices. You'll never live everything. You imagine there's time to try everything, to be everything, to live out every version of who you could have been. But there isn't. Every choice you make kills 1,000 others. Every yes is a no to something else. And it adds up. The school you didn't choose, the stranger you never spoke to, the move you never made, the version of you who left, who stayed, who risked, who ran. They all still exist, but only in your mind. Ghost lives, shadow selves, infinite paths stretching in every direction, forever unwalked. And no matter how full your life becomes, it will always be haunted by what didn't happen. You can feel them sometimes, those other versions of you, flickering in the background, when you hesitate, when you regret, when you wonder what would have happened if you had just said something different, done something different, been someone different. But you didn't. And now that path is closed, because time only moves forward, and life only gives you one road. No rewinds, no do-overs, just memory and imagination filling in the blanks. And the older you get, the heavier those blanks become. The more clearly you see the lives you'll never live, the doors that are now permanently shut, not by fate, but by choice, by chance, by the simple fact that you can't be everything. And that's the quiet tragedy of being alive. Not that life is short, but that it's narrow, and the world is too wide. You were never meant to experience it all, and yet part of you will always want to. Always ache for the unlived. Always carry the weight of infinite selves that will never be born. Not because you failed, but because you had to choose. And choosing means losing everything else, every path, every moment, every life that could have been. And in the silence between heartbeats, you'll sometimes wonder, what did it cost to become the person you are now? And was it worth it? You're a prisoner of time. You wake up each day believing you're free, but you're not, because time is the cell, and you are its inmate. The past drags behind you like a chain. Every memory, every mistake, every version of yourself you can't erase. And the future stands in front of you like a wall, unseen, unknown, yet impossible to ignore. You're trapped between them, pulled back by what already happened, pushed forward by what hasn't yet arrived. And no matter how fast you run, you can't step outside of it. You can't pause, can't rewind, can't ever truly be still. Because even in silence, the seconds bleed away. The past defines you. It molds your identity, your fears, your story. But it's gone, unreachable, just shadows echoing in your head. And still, it controls you. The future terrifies you, fills your mind with hopes, disasters, questions you'll never answer. And still, it commands your decisions. The present, what you call now, is barely real. A flicker between what just happened and what comes next. By the time you notice it, it's already behind you. And so, you live in tension, haunted by memories, hunted by what's ahead, measuring your life with clocks and calendars, as if understanding time will free you from it. But it won't, because every breath you take is a countdown. Time is not just passing, it's consuming. Everything you love, everything you build, Everything you are will be taken by it. Slowly, inevitably, without mercy. And the cruelest part? It never stops. Even when you're tired, even when you beg it to, you are trapped inside a system that never asked for your permission. Born into a machine that moves forward no matter how hard you scream. And when your time runs out, the machine will keep going. Without you. Without pause. Without care. Because in the end, you were never its master. Only its prisoner. Watching your sentence tick away, one heartbeat at a time. You'll never know why. You search for reasons, for patterns, for something that makes all of this make sense. But the deeper you look, the more it falls apart. The universe doesn't explain itself. It just is. Stars are born and die without meaning. People live and suffer without answers. Things happen, and we ask why, but the silence is louder than the question. You were raised to believe there's a purpose, that pain has meaning, that life leads somewhere. But what if it doesn't? What if why is just a noise your mind makes to keep from unraveling? A reflex, a defense against the truth that maybe there is no reason, no design, no ultimate answer waiting at the end. Philosophy tries, religion promises, science explains the how, but why remains untouched. Every answer collapses into more questions, and every layer you peel back reveals nothing underneath. You want to believe your suffering matters, that your love, your fear, your joy all point towards something bigger, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just chemical storms in a self-aware machine. Maybe existence is blind, cold, indifferent, and that's the part no one wants to say aloud, that the question might be broken, that the need for purpose might be a flaw, not a feature, that the search itself is a trap, leading nowhere but inward. You will keep asking, even when you know better, because that's what humans do. We scream into the void and pretend it whispered back. But the void is empty, and the whisper is just our own voice, echoing in circles. The truth is simple, brutal, and inescapable. You may never know why you're here. And the longer you look, the more that answer slips away. Maybe there is no why. Maybe there never was. And maybe that's the answer you were never meant to find.